Hanoi, an ancient city with a long history. Hanoi, a poetic city with hidden delicacy and irresistible charms. All these little things have made Marcus Lacey, a British director and photographer, fall in love with Hanoi. Marcus has spent nearly 6 years roaming Hanoi's roads, streets, and villages to interact with the lovely locals and express through his images his special appreciation for Vietnam's capital.
Hello and welcome to Talk Vietnam. The amazing thing about Hanoi as a big city is that it is remarkably similar to other great cities, yet it is very unique in its own way. And this is the comment of our guest on Talk Vietnam today, Mr. Marcus Lacey, who has been living and working in Vietnam as a photographer. So today we are very lucky to have him here with us, and he can show us his journey as well as these photos that he has taken in this beautiful capital city of Vietnam. Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
I saw you bring a lot of books and also props here to introduce us. So can you talk a little bit about the book that you're bringing here today?
Sure. So this is the Hanoi Photographic Collection. This is a book that I brought out in 2018, and I spent 3 years making the book, and it's all about the culture, history, architecture, and wildlife and scenery of Hanoi.
Wow, such big varieties of scenery, people, and also wildlife as well. So why did you choose Hanoi as the theme for your book?
So I started, I first moved to Hanoi in 2016. I was invited here by my brother, who was an engineer who was building a factory south of Hanoi.
Okay.
And he was starting a business with his partner. And I came over because I had been working in London directing films for Highways England. And I had always dreamed of coming to Hanoi and Vietnam. And it was a perfect opportunity to come and help him set up his business, do a website, do the photography for him.
Oh, okay. So you had a background in film and photography?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I've been doing it for about 12 years,
Wow.
doing a mixture of video directing and photography.
So you know our job very well.
I try to.
The first time you were here in Hanoi, you found many things that you hadn't encountered before, right? So can you maybe recall some of the experience?
So it's certainly one of the things I wasn't expecting to see, the architecture that I saw here. You know, that was, as well as the wildlife, I didn't expect to see lots of wildlife in the city. I didn't expect the city, if you look at certain parts and edges of Hanoi, it really does have a boundary of just gardens and then nature,
right,
and the countryside. So as long as you have avenues of trees and areas that have lakes, you know, that will attract enormous amounts of wildlife, which is fabulous if you enjoy that sort of thing. And obviously the Vietnamese love the lakes, and that's one of the beautiful things that you see and experience as soon as you get here, is everyone walking around in the morning doing their exercises all around the edges of lakes.
I think Hanoi is a special city because we have so many lakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see you know, that many lakes in other cities in neighboring countries.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then around the lake you have a whole ecosystem around it, houses, people, and markets. Now I want to ask you a little bit about your book. Your first book, you studied a lot for your first book, Hanoi Photographic Collection. What are the most interesting things that you've learned about Hanoi's history and culture during that process? So
I think the most interesting thing for me, or studying sort of like history of a place and in particular Hanoi, was reading that the city's actual location, this was in sort of 1010, when it was decided to be built there, was chosen because of geomancy, and that's a massive form of feng shui. So it's a way of aligning the energy to get the perfect location for a city. But of course, it's not just about that. It's also being right next to a river, being where it is quite close to the sea, close to the mountains. It's just a perfect place to have a city. You've got a lot of flat lands around the city, and many years ago there were a lot more lakes, but that would have just given the people that live here lots and lots of food and the ability to grow crops.
Right.
And that just fascinates me, the location of where things are decided to be put. And so I love that connection as well with how the old quarter grew out of a little market. That reminds me of my childhood and little villages and towns in England that are often called, New Market. And they grew up out of little markets, basically around a square as well.
You've traveled around the world and taking hundreds of thousands of photos. And the first photographic collection that you've ever published is about Hanoi. So why so?
Well, that's really exciting to talk about because it's a mixture really of how the local Hanoians and Vietnamese and the foreign people that live here are really connected with social media. So I started taking pictures and posting them on social media, and people started obviously, liking them and discussing them and talking to me about what they liked about it, and then telling me where to go to take a photo of a building that they had on their street that I should go and photograph, which gave me a real super fast insight into going to find places that could have taken potentially decades to just try and find all of those hidden gems within a city. And then people started to basically say, you should do a book. And so with that confidence of knowing that there was already an interest, even though I didn't know how much, I felt confident enough to start to do a lot more research and take a lot more pictures and take it more seriously. And that's kind of how it started and evolved.
Yeah.
The beauty of Hanoi is like a jewel to Marcus Lacey. It changes with the time of day and the light and rhythm of the people. All have inspired his creative artistic vision. After 16 months of researching and observation, Marcus took thousands of photos of Hanoi. Then, he selected 200 of his favorite photos to include in the Hanoi Photographic Collection photo book published in 2018. One can see through Marcus' photos the passage of time through the ship passing under the historic Long Bridge, the ancient beauty of the memory-stained windows, and the French architecture in Hanoi. He also devoted an entire chapter to photos of traditional craft villages such as Bachang Pottery Village. The book's photos have received thousands of likes and emojis and hundreds of positive comments on Facebook.
Marcus là một cái nhiếp ảnh gia thực sự dày công ghi lại những hình ảnh về Hà Nội. Chúng tôi là những người sinh ra và lớn lên ở Hà Nội và cũng là những người làm kiến trúc. Thực sự là cảm động khi được nhìn thấy những cái hình ảnh mà anh đã lưu lại. Nó gợi nhớ những cái ký ức của người Hà Nội có sự tươi mới, lạc quan và sống động.
So show me some of the photos.
This is an incredible spectacle of van village. So apparently this festival has been going on for 600 years.
Okay.
And the single most handsome, strongest men of the village are chosen every 4 years to take part in this festival that represents this struggle between these two young men of a village that fought a dragon, in a river dragon.
Okay.
I believe it's commonly believed that it's a metaphorical story,
Right.
and the dragon could have been another village battle, or it could have been the weather, could have been something else.
Okay.
But the tradition has gone on, and it's an incredible thing. And they carry this enormous wooden ball around. They have two teams in a pitch about the size of a tennis court, and it's covered in mud.
Right.
And the entire village comes out to watch, and they basically run around carrying this. And
It's beautiful.
here's one of the young men doing a backflip after they scored. So they occasionally get the ball into a hole at the other end.
Yeah. Was it difficult taking photos in such a environment, because the mud, it can go anywhere, everywhere?
It was.
To the lenses, for example.
I chose to basically get very high from the back and shoot over everybody's heads.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of local people helped me with that, getting me chairs and holding me so that I wouldn't fall over.
Now I want to ask you, in the introduction, I quote you, and then you once said that the amazing thing about Hanoi is that it's, a big city, is quite remarkably similar to other cities, but it is also very unique, right? So can you elaborate more on this, like how unique Hanoi is?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that coming from the cities that I have lived in, like Wellington in New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, London in England, the rapid change and speed of development in Hanoi is quite incredible. Okay. You've got a city that's growing very, very quickly, and a lot of development, and that's really exciting. That must be exciting for Vietnamese people. It's certainly exciting for foreigners. And as well as that, you also have these beautiful things that I've talked about already, which is it's like living in the best of two worlds, like, living a little bit in the countryside.
Yeah.
And then you have most of Hanoi has little pockets of old villages that were literally villages. And you can go there and there'll be either the little restaurants or this little strip of restaurants, the little miniature market.
Right.
And that sort of feeling of not ever perhaps having to leave your little village if you
Right.
don't want to.
Yeah.
But then you can travel across the city really quickly as well. I mean, at the moment now, it's still really great to get around. It's still, 20 minutes across most of the city.
Right. After living in Hanoi for 6 years, Marcus Lacey has realized that Hanoi is the wonderful source of inspiration and creativity. Every beloved street, corner, and little simple thing here touches his heart. So today, come with Talk Vietnam to visit one of Marcus' favorite places in Hanoi. What is it about the Tô Tịch Street, for example, that you fell in love with or you found fascinating when you first saw it?
So I think what I really love about this street is the old carvings, the people, the busyness, the little durian stand. I'm sure you can smell the fruit.
Yeah, I can smell it from here.
There's so much going on. There's so much life. There's the carpenter's dog that I photographed that I put in the book. There's a lot of beautiful architecture here as well. All the streets in the old quarter are really fascinating because of how busy they are and how exciting they are to come and visit. If you look up, you'll see the architecture is a fascinating mix. But you'll see some original old Vietnamese buildings as well. There's some gorgeous balconies, gorgeous window shutters. So all people really need to do is look up.
Right. So yeah, what you say is very interesting because usually I just look straight and
Yeah.
kind of ignore the details. You know, I don't look up. So
Yeah.
after this time, I try.
Awesome.
So do you remember how many times you have visited the old quarter?
Oh, I would come here over 1,000 times.
Over 1,000
Oh,
times.
absolutely. To drive through and drive around, and sometimes just to come and shop. I think that I just want to share it with more people so that more people will come here, understand it, and appreciate the beauty of the architecture and the people.
Right. So because you came here so many times, do you find the scenes different each time you visit? Like you every time you learn something new, or like you find out some new details?
Oh, there's so much to learn. Like, there's so many fascinating little stories, and also the history is so incredible. You have the sun setting, literally, you get the golden hour shining straight down the street, and you can see all the people walking and carrying things with the sunlight right behind them. So it's a beautiful opportunity to get a photograph at the golden hour.
Yeah.
You once said that the process of taking a photo requires much more than just pressing the shutter button. So can you elaborate more on that? What do you mean by much more than just pressing the shutter button?
I think that the pictures that I enjoy the most are something that obviously tells a story, but has a meaning. And the deeper meaning to a picture is, for me, something as simple as looking at a building in a particular way. It might be just excluding everything else. So just showing that building.
Okay.
And it could be, for example, these objects that I plan to feature in the book that's about food and food culture of Hanoi. On the one hand, kind of quite normal, common,
I know what that is.
boring objects.
Yes.
Well,
My mom uses it all the time.
all the
too.
time?
Yeah, yeah.
The same.
For ginger, and then for garlic,
Yeah.
and also for small crab.
Yeah.
And she makes crab soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know it's in Vietnamese, it's called chay.
Jay.
Yeah, chay.
So this, to me, is absolutely exquisite. It's a beautiful object, and like photos that I've taken of the beer hoi glass and fruit and vegetables.
So you don't have a similar kind of thing in England?
I think in England it'll be a pestle and mortar, so it doesn't have a double handle like this.
Okay. Yeah.
And then this is another beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's the mold.
Yeah.
To make a mooncake. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the sort of thing that I think that I hope I've certainly seen when I ever see them, and I found this in an old antique shop. I think it's just an absolutely beautiful carving of a little fish.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think to myself, well, that'll make an incredible photograph
Right.
with other objects that tell the story of what it's about.
Yeah.
I think of as a artistic way of looking at objects is to basically just look at that object on its own.
Okay. Like the shape, the size, the material.
Exactly, exactly. And use light to highlight those things.
Okay, okay. And then are you interested in knowing more about the story behind those objects?
Exactly.
So that is your future project, or the project you are working on
Yeah,
right now?
that's what I'm working on now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So what are the stories behind these objects?
Well, they're just the objects that I'm finding, and I'm going to put in the book.
Okay.
That is going to be about the food and the culture of Hanoi. So it's going to be a mixture of pictures of people with their stories, the food.
How would you tell foreign visitors about Hanoi's old and present architecture?
So if anybody's interested in architecture, Hanoi is a place they definitely must visit. It's absolutely incredible. There's so much to see with regards to architecture, with regards to pagoda, historical places like One Pillar Pagoda and the Temple of Literature. You've also got the Franco architecture, and you have in the Old Quarter and the French Quarter, you have very unique architecture you won't find anywhere else. You've got beautiful shop houses and beautiful stuccos on buildings above the shop houses. And yeah, if you come to visit, a lot of foreigners only come for a day or a couple of days. Maybe they stay longer, but I think the best advice I could give them would be to visit as much as possible. Get a bike, drive around, hire a guide, get somebody to show you around, that's somebody that actually knows the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots to see.
You also took many photos about the Old Quarter, right? So what is it about the Old Quarter that kept you coming back so many times and take so many photos?
I think the fact that it kind of reminds me of England, old little villages by castles that have these tiny little alleys and nooks and crannies, and the fact that it's just got so much life, the fact it's just such a buzz to it. There's the food and there's the different shops and there's the smells and there's the industry, there's things being actually made on the street, and the history. So I love looking at old bits of history, like now I'm just finding out now where Totich River used to run.
So after this this book, Hanoi Photographic Collection, what's next?
So I've talked a little bit about the idea of doing a food book about Hanoi. I think that honestly the number one thing that most people in the world think about when it comes to Vietnam would be food, and food and the people. And then, you know, when people come to visit a place, it's always about, you know, where to go, what to see, what to eat, exactly.
Yeah.
And Hanoi's fascinating in that you have this amazing culture of food and drinking coffee as well. You know, so there's this incredible culture of street food, going out in restaurants, amazing dishes, which you can just go on and on about how many incredible dishes there are, and the cafe scene and everything now that is new. You know, all these incredible new restaurants and places. So there's a huge story to tell there, and I want to try to tell it with regard and respect to the history as well. So that's the project I'm working on now.
Marcus Lacey will continue to express his love for Hanoi through food photography in his next project. He has already started taking the first shots for this project. Today, he researched and visited a nice little restaurant to snap some Vietnamese distinctive dishes, such as vegetable soup cooked with green rice flakes, a salad made from shrimp and pomelo, as well as fish.
Yeah, and go a bit closer.
Yeah.
Gần hơn.
That's it. Perfect. It's a beautifully presented dish. Yeah.
And the coriander. A little smell. And
Onion. Spring onion for that.
yeah.
Can you put your fingers back like this to the side? That's it.
Marcus Lacey not only captures these dishes for work, but he also has the opportunity to sample delicious Hanoi cuisine. As Vietnamese cuisine is a fascinating topic, he wants to tell intriguing stories about it to entice more visitors to Hanoi.
Usually, how do you get a personal story from a photo? Like you just come and say hi to the local people and then you talk to them? And
I think so. I already have a few local stories in there because of the fact I've spoken to. I've just spoken to somebody that I know, and they end up having a story about their great grandparents
Right.
and the shop that they used to have. And so, you know, I'll gone and photographed the shop. Now I'll go back and speak to them again, research it a bit, try and figure out how I can make the story tie in with a picture.
so, what else about Hanoi are you going to discover in the future?
So there are, for me, I think there's probably a book in every single chapter. But one of the amazing things that I would love to do, but it would take a really long time
Right.
to do. But it's just something that I really want to do eventually, would be to do photographic portraits of creative people and
Okay.
artists.
I see.
And basically people that are either new, up and coming, or have been doing what they do for decades or years.
Right.
Even retired artists, whoever it is. But it would be lovely to get that sort of story about Hanoi, because Hanoi is such a creative city. And that's one project. Another one would be doing the interior architecture of the buildings. So the rooms of people's houses in the old villas. So it would be fascinating to do a book about the interiors of the buildings in Hanoi, as well as the actual architecture. So just a book on the architecture, because there's some fascinating Art Deco that maybe we can look at as well when we look at the old quarter. Anyone coming to the city should definitely try to find the old Art Deco buildings in the old quarter as well.
Marcus Lacey shared with Talk Vietnam that one of the places that left a strong impression on him was Bát Tràng Pottery Village. To him, this village represents the rustic and delicate beauty of the Vietnamese countryside and the modern through its busy trading activities. So Marcus, what was your first impression when you visited Bát Tràng village?
The first time I came here, I was looking for pottery for a cafe, and I was amazed by the beautiful little shops and the unique painting and the handmade aspect of all the pottery, ceramics, and also as well all around the village you would see things like beautiful bicycles and clay and the manufacturing on a very small scale of all of these ceramics that have been happening in this village for thousands of years.
Out of so many topics like that, what topic in Bát Tràng village that you like the most to feature?
in your photos?
I think it's the handmade aspect of the craft itself. So the painting, making the ceramics by hand.
Taking photos is not just about pressing the shutter button, right? So how did you prepare for a photo session here?
People working with it is really all about the shade of the product itself. That's most or best shown, I think, with natural light. So having come here before and seen it, I know that you're really best trying to get a good shadow on the ceramics and making sure that you get a nice cast shadow across the faces of the people that you're photographing, and that makes a beautiful picture. So having come to Bat Trang many, many times, I've experienced that the best way to take pictures of the people and the ceramics.
During this visit to Bat Trang village, Marcus had an opportunity to reunite with one of the artisans he photographed and talk about the memory captured by his lens.
It's you. Yeah.
Ảnh mình muốn hết rồi.
This is you mixing the ceramic, glazing, the same, still the same, and holding it, and doing the teapot. This is
Cái này rất
Patrick.
đẹp. Yêu ghê.
Now let's talk about the wildlife. Tell us about the wildlife in Hanoi.
Okay, so the second day that I was here, I had a beautiful bird called a hoopoe, which is a large crow-like pink and white bird with a massive crest and a long bill, literally fly into my face as I'm driving along Tu Hoa around the edge of the lake.
Okay.
And I was just shocked that a beautiful bird like that would be in the city. So I immediately jumped online later that night and started looking at the wildlife, the birds that you have, and was astonished that there's a huge amount of wildlife to see in Hanoi. So I started looking for it, and you know, around the area of Westlake, you have a place called the Water Park where they grow lotus flower.
Yeah.
And these lakes are basically perfect habitat for all sorts of wildlife like kingfishers, bitterns, herons, storks.
Okay.
So I started going around and photographing every morning. It's two sort of times that are really ideal to birdwatch, which is very early in the morning and
What time?
in the evening.
Usually what time in the morning?
So just after the sun has come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon as it gets light.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got a lot of lovely shots of kingfishers hunting in the lakes. So that's a great indicator of how many fish there are, how healthy the lakes are.
Yeah.
And
Usually how much time do you dedicate to one session of photo taking like that?
it'll be a couple of hours, definitely.
One of the things that surprised Marcus Lacey when looking for the beauty of Hanoi was nature. So he roamed the streets looking for and taking pictures of some of the birds he had discovered in Hanoi. The process of shooting the birds, flying, perching on tree branches, and catching prey like this took months. And then suddenly, photos of little-known Hanoi birds were captured.
You know from the very early age that you like photography, or how did you come up with that?
My father gave me a camera when I was 7. So he was a pilot and spent most of his career working in Africa.
Okay.
And he would every couple of years he'd buy a new camera for himself. And he gave me a camera, my first one when I was 7. It wasn't very flash. It was quite simple, but I could take pictures, and I love photography, but I loved art as well. Loved design, loved making things.
Right.
Yeah, loved basically using my hands.
At the end of the day, what's about Hanoi that you wish will stay with foreign visitors?
It's definitely the people,
The
number
people.
one. Yeah, how friendly they are, how welcoming they are, and the food, and of course the place. Hopefully the best parts will remain the same. I'm sure they will. They've been here for hundreds of years, so they'll stay, beautiful and clean, and be able to sort of entertain more people in the future, more visitors.
What keeps you staying here in Hanoi, and how's the city inspiring you day after day?
There's just so much to photograph. I mean, I love doing photography every day. I love also learning new things about history and about culture, and just having the opportunity to be able to take photographs of all kinds of different things is fantastic. I feel privileged and lucky. It's it's a wonderful day that I have if I get a chance to just take some photographs of something that I love.
So what about your future plan? If you can share it with the audience of Talk Vietnam?
Well, I wish to make many, many more books about Vietnam. Many more books about Vietnam. If I could, some of them would be about natural history, about the national parks. I think a lot of people know about places like Ha Long Bay and other, places like UNESCO heritage places like Hoi An and Hai Giang. But as well as those, you also have all this other unique landscapes and incredible national parks where people can go and see wildlife and visit and experience the nature of Vietnam, which is incredibly unique. A lot of the species here are endemic, so they live nowhere else. And that can definitely be an enormous part of tourism and hopefully also the lives of Vietnamese people as well.
Thank you so much for your sharing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more beautiful photos coming from you, and maybe new books coming out soon about cuisine, about all of the themes and inspiration that you have from Vietnam.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So thanks to Marcus' story and his beautiful photos, we can see Vietnam from his angle, from his lenses. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, and we hope to see you again next time on another episode of Talk Vietnam.